Well, good evening. My name is Father Chris Vorderbruggen. Um, Doing something a little bit different tonight. We're doing a live stream. I'm going to read a reflection on a person. This is not a sermon. It's not a homily. Um, it's not really religious at all, actually. It's. I'll just show you what I'm going to be reading from, so you can see it's all backwards, of course. But basically, what this is going to be. This will be my reflection on Amber Glenn. Now, I don't know her. All of this is coming from my research that I just started reading about her over the last week or so. There was some controversy. She's an Olympic athlete, a figure skater for the United States. And the controversy is, uh, she, as an athlete, as a public figure, does not only talk about her sport. She talks about her life, what's affected her life. She talks about her causes, and she does this on the public stage. And people who disagree with what she says, for whatever reason, they take it very personally. And I was shocked to see the treatment of her in the media, on social media, and just by members of the public and politicians who spoke about her in a way that to me was very dehumanizing, because I could just tell by listening, even though I didn't know her story yet, I could tell that the people who were talking about her were just talking about the headlines. They were not speaking from a place of knowing this woman. And so, as a priest, as a missionary, someone who's worked with people on the margins, which is a huge category, but it just means everyone for the most part, but especially special people. And I consider Amber to be one of those special, especially once I started reading her life, uh, which is, her life story was fascinating for me. And so I put this reflection together, and I've been sharing it online. It's got, I don't know, 10,000 views. I don't know. It's long. It's like one of my sermons. I think it's close to 2,500 words, 2,000 words. And so I don't think people are even reading all of that. They're probably skimming it or stuff like that. So I thought tonight I would read this for you. And my hope and prayer is that if she ever sees this, whether it's this video or reads my reflection on her, of course, if she were to sit and read it, she'd be like, well, he got this wrong. How did he know I was thinking this there? How did he know my experience of this was that? And that's the way it is with anything. Even when you tell the story of a dear friend, if the dear friend later on were to read or listen to the story, they'd be like, well, that's not how I felt at the time. So obviously, I didn't get into her head uh, beyond reading her. And because she has been so vocal uh, with the public, her statements are out there. People talk about her. Her fans and her friends talk about her. Sports publications write about her. And so what I did was I absorbed all of that for a period of days after I saw her being treated. Now, I will say this, if you're on X right now and you go to my pinned post, which is the very top of my profile, you'll see that has over 500,000 views and a lot of engagement. That was the post that I originally wrote saying I'm going to write this reflection. And it kind of went viral. For me, that's viral because I don't usually talk about controversial things. I'm usually talking about religious things or moral things. And so I don't get the kind of engagement that the big influencer accounts did. But this one did. And I'm just going to look at it right now here. So I'll come to my own. I don't do this a lot, so I have to just get to my. So I'll go to posts. And there it is. It's 529,000. And this is what I said. I said, seeing people celebrate Amber Glenn having a rough skate and attack her skills or her politics is just cruel. Getting to the Olympics is brutally hard, and she's a national champion who earned respect. I'm proud of her and will share her story soon. So that was a day or so ago. And then I had already been writing and reading about her. But then I today released her this thing. It's got 9,500 views, but only 24 likes, which tells me that there's not a lot of people who are probably reading it, or if they're reading it, they're not coming back to like it. But I have gotten a lot of messages from people that I don't know who are saying, thank you for writing this article about her. And so, and that's what it is. It is an article about her, but it really is my reflection. And it's not just my reflection as just a guy. It was, I stepped into this, I've been a street priest. So that's most of what I did, is work with people on the margins, but also work with people like Amber, who identifies a little differently. She talks about her sexuality in a way that offends people, and it offends them a lot of times. This is what my observation is: the offense was not really because the people encountered her, but just because of this idea that she dared to speak of. Now, in my reflection, I don't really talk about that, because I don't define anyone by that kind of an identity. I just don't. And so that is certainly part of someone. And I will touch on it just a smidgen here. And that's not because I'm hiding from it or I'm embarrassed to talk about it. I'm not. But I wanted to encounter the girl. If you look at this picture, if you're on X, which most of you are, if you go to my pin, you'll see that is that's AI. I sat and talked with one of the AIs to have them create a picture, because I didn't want to use her own. I didn't just want to go and take a picture from online. And the people in the background, there's two people. Though that's supposed to be her. I have no idea. I didn't even look to see what her mom and dad look like. But I read enough to know that her mom and dad were definitely present with her when she was a girl. And there's so much narrative online right now. Oh, she's rich, she's spoiled, she's whatever, she's a whatever. If you actually read her story, in part of my reflection, I hope will do it justice, you'll see that they worked really hard to allow her to skate. And she started off in mall ice rinks, so she was not, in Paris or New York or someplace like that. And so I think there's a lot of misconceptions about her out there, where people presume that they know her life story because of what she looks like, or how she talks, or what country she's from. Now, me as a missionary, having traveled the entire world, literally, with very few exceptions, I've been to many places. And so I can tell you that trying to place people into a box of where they're from doesn't always work. And I think this story is one of those stories where it doesn't work. I don't think the narrative that's being told about her works. And so I wanted to just add my voice, such as it is, not even so much as of a defense of her, but this is my intention, just to encounter her. And as I encounter her, to then share with the world what I found. And like I said, I have no idea how many people will read this or will see this video. But without further ado, and by the way, if you are subscribed to my Substack, actually, no, I don't think this article went up on Substack. So but most of you are from X. So if you just go to my page and to the top, you'll find this article. Oh, actually, it's not on the top. Let me see where it is before we begin. Because the top one right now is my big post about her. That's the one. Actually, if you do click on that post, when you open up that post and you just scroll down, oh, that's a sad one, isn't it? The first thing you'll see is my article. So if you want to follow along as I read this, cool. Otherwise, you can just listen as I go along here. But this is, I don't even want to call it a tribute. This is just my encounter with her life story, not knowing her. So, Amber, if you ever see this, I did the best I could not knowing you. Or if you ever read this, or whatever, I hope I did you justice. Okay? Amber Glen, the The ice and the weight of being human. There are moments in sport when the music ends, but the silence says more than the applause ever could. The other night, Amber Glenn finished her short program, and you could see it immediately in her face. Not confusion, not anger, not defiance, heartbreak. The kind that comes when you know how hard you have worked and how small the margin for error truly is. One mistimed jump, one element invalidated, months, even years of preparation suddenly hanging by a thread. She walked off the ice in tears. Some saw only the scoreboard, 13th place, a placement that does not reflect her resume, a placement that does not reflect her ability, a placement that certainly does not reflect her entire life. But that is how figure skating works. It is beautiful and unforgiving. It is art and arithmetic. It is courage measured in fractions of a second. Before we talk about controversy, before we talk about politics, before we talk about the noise, we need to talk about the girl from Texas who fell in love with the ice. Amber Glenn was born in Plano, Texas in 1999, not in Moscow, not in Montreal, not in some legendary European skating capital, Texas. She started skating at a mall rink as a child, the kind of place where birthday parties happen and beginners wobble along the boards. From the beginning, she had something special: power, height on her jumps, musical instinct. But figure skating is not a cheap hobby. It's one of the most financially demanding sports in the world. Ice time, coaching, choreography, costumes, travel, physical therapy, competition fees. It adds up quickly. Her parents worked relentlessly to support her dream. Her mother took jobs at the rink. Her father worked long hours in law enforcement. They did not create an elite athlete out of entitlement. They built one out of sacrifice. People online call her privileged, spoiled, elite. They do not see the early mornings. They do not see the financial strain. They do not see the family conversations about whether they could afford one more season. They see sequins and assume silver spoons. At 14, Amber won the U.S. Junior National title. In figure skating terms, that is a blazing start. Expectations followed immediately. When you succeed that young, the world begins planning your future for you. Olympic talk begins before you are old enough to drive. And then came something many do not want to talk about: depression, anxiety, and eating disorder. A young teenager crushed by pressure, identity, perfectionism, and the weight of performance. She stepped away from competition. She entered treatment. She has spoken openly how dark that period was, not in dramatic language, but in honest language. It is easy to cheer for a comeback. It is harder to understand what it costs. Coming back did not mean she suddenly became invincible. It meant she learned how to live with vulnerability. She learned how to compete while carrying the reality of mental health. She learned that strength does not always look like stoicism. Sometimes it looks like tears. Her senior career was not smooth. There were brilliant programs followed by inconsistency. There were injuries. There was COVID. There were seasons when she looked like a national champion, and seasons when she looked like she might not quite even break through. And then she did. In 2024, she won her first U.S. national title at the senior level. She defended it. Then she did it again. 3 consecutive national championships. In a sport that often celebrates teenage prodigies, she won as an adult woman who had endured setbacks and grown tough through them. Women in their 20s and even 30s continue to compete at the highest level of this sport, and she stands among the company with earned maturity rather than youthful novelty. She landed triple axels. She helped the United States in the team event. She became one of the most technically ambitious American women of her generation. This week at the Olympics, she stepped onto the ice carrying not just her own expectations, but the expectations of a nation. And then she missed. This is sport. It is brutal. But this is where the story becomes more complicated. Amber Glenn has also been vocal off the ice. She has spoken publicly about her identity. She has expressed support for LGBTQ causes. She has criticized political leaders whose policies she believes harm that community. She did not make those statements inside the competition arena. The Olympic Charter, specifically Rule 50, restricts political demonstrations in official Olympic venues and on the field of play. She has not violated that. She has spoken in press contexts and in her personal life. Still, in the current climate, that is enough. Some have applauded her courage. Others have responded with anger, not simple disagreement. Anger that mocks her appearance. Anger that weaponizes her placement. Anger that tells her to shut up and skate. Is it new for American athletes to speak publicly about matters of conscience? Not at all. Throughout modern American history, athletes have stepped beyond their lanes and spoken what they believe to be true, sometimes about justice, sometimes about identity, sometimes about their country itself. Whether one agrees or disagrees, the tradition is not unfamiliar. The athletic stage has often become a platform where personal conviction meets public scrutiny. The question is not whether athletes speak, they always have. The question is whether we can hold disagreement without dehumanization. I have read the comments about Amber. They are not thoughtful critiques of policy. They are personal attacks. They reduce her to her sexuality. They reduce her to her worst skate. They reduce her to a stereotype. That is beneath us. You do not have to agree with her. You do not have to adopt her language. You do not have to endorse her politics, but you can recognize her dignity. What struck me most after her short program was not the technical error. It was her response the next day. She acknowledged the mistake. She owned it. She spoke about resilience. She did not blame judges. She did not lash out. She did not collapse into self-pity. She spoke like someone who has already survived harder things than a popped jump. That kind of maturity is not manufactured overnight. It comes from hospital rooms. It comes from therapy. It comes from the long interior work of deciding you want to live. When I say that if I met her, I would want to sit down and talk, I mean that sincerely, not to argue, not to correct, to listen, to understand the road that shaped her, to hear about Texas mornings at the rink, to hear about the pressure of being a national champion, to hear about what it feels like to step back from the sport as a teenager because you were not sure you could survive it. If you think that makes me weak in conviction, you misunderstand the gospel. Christ did not begin with agreement. He began with encounter. He met tax collectors before they changed. He met adulterers before the stones stopped flying. He met zealots and collaborators and fishermen and skeptics. He looked at people and saw more than their labels. Amber Glenn is 26 years old. That is still young. She carries more scrutiny than most of us will ever know. Every jump dissected, every word amplified, every tear replayed. And yet, she skates. She skates knowing she will be judged, literally judged, and she skates knowing she will be judged morally by strangers who have never laced up a pair of skates in their lives. There is something courageous about that. Figure skating at its highest level is an exposure. You step onto a sheet of ice alone. No teammates to pass to, no defense to hide behind. The music starts and you are exposed in the sense that everything you can do or cannot do will be visible. This week, Amber Glenn's vulnerability was visible. It would be easy to let the narrative freeze at that moment. 13th place, controversial, overrated. This is the way the internet works. but her story is larger. It includes a childhood supported by parents who worked beyond exhaustion. It includes early triumph. It includes mental collapse and rebuilding. It includes national titles earned through perseverance. It includes speaking openly about mental health in a sport that once preferred silence, and it still largely does. Figure skating, I'm commenting now. What we see is the polished product. Okay, we don't see the tears and the pain that came before it hits the Olympics. Now, we do see some of it. We saw it with Amber. We saw it with some of the other competitors this week, but really it is a sport that I still believe prefers silence. But that's just me speaking. I'm not an expert. I'm just an observer, but I'm an empathetic observer, and that's been part of what I do. You can disagree with her political stance and still admire her resilience. You can hold traditional moral convictions and still refuse to join the mob. As Christians, especially those of us rooted in historic Christianity, we must be careful not to confuse moral clarity with cruelty. See, that's what the online world that does not understand that nuance at all. At all. It doesn't get it. If truth is not spoken with love, it becomes a weapon. Watching her skate, even in disappointment, I saw something profoundly human. I saw a woman who dared to risk failure in front of the world. I saw tears that were not theatrical, but real. I saw the cost of ambition. Thursday's free skate will come, and it did. It came, and she rocked it. There was some kind of a technical error. But beyond that, she landed that triple axel. She landed a jump that there was only one other woman who, in this Olympics, who dared to even try it. Ami, the Japanese 17-year-old, fearless, with the biggest smile in the whole group, other than probably, Alyssa has a big smile, but this Japanese 17-year-old, if you look at her smile, you'll see what I'm saying. But she's the only other one who attempted this triple axel. Thursday's free skate will come. It did. Perhaps she will soar. Perhaps she will stumble again. She didn't. Either way, her life will not be defined by one Olympic program. Maybe it will. It was an awesome comeback because she went from 13th place all the way to first place for a very long time until we got to just the last handful of competitors, but she sat at first place. Boom, she did. And people are not giving her enough credit. Her detractors are not coming back and talking about that. But I will. Most of us will never know what it is like to stand in that arena. But we do know what it is like to fail publicly in our own smaller arenas. We know what it is like to be misunderstood. We know what it is like to say something and have it echo louder than we intended. Amber Glunn's story to me is not about endorsing a platform. It is about remembering the person. In a culture that devours its athletes the moment they falter, perhaps we can choose something different. Perhaps we can look at the screen, see the tears, and say a quiet prayer. Not that she win, although I was. I have to tell you, if she ever does see this, I hope I get a little bit of credit. And I'm saying that just a little joke, because I was praying for her for the last few days. And today, when she was live out there, I was literally, and I don't do that. I don't even do it for my own sports team. I've never felt good about praying for a sports team. I don't know why. I've always been afraid that God would be like, Chris, why would you think I would help you with this particular sports team when the universe is doing whatever it's doing? Planets colliding, black holes happening, people dying. And here I would be praying for my favorite sports team, but I did today. And when she landed some of those jumps, I was literally going like this. So I really did say a prayer by myself. Nobody saw it. Now you guys know I did it, but that was it. Because I just wanted her to make it. I wanted what happened to happen. And you know what the truth is? If she had not had the errors of a couple days ago, it's very possible we'd be talking about I know we would be talking. I don't know. I think we'd be talking about a different group on the podium. I really do. So this idea that she's washed up or something like that, that's BS. That is propaganda coming from somewhere. And let me finish this, and then if I want to give some more commentary. Not that she win, not that she change, simply that she be held in mercy, the quiet prayer. Because at the end of the day, beyond medals and movements and headlines, she's a daughter. She's a competitor. She is a human being standing on a blade over ice, doing the best she can. And that, in this age of instant judgment, is worth honoring. So that's my reflection on that. And I'm so happy that I got to read it to you guys. And, share the video. Let people see this if you don't mind. Because I want people to know that and by the way, if you go to that pinned post, not so much the article, because the article is getting views, but it's not getting a lot of engagement. So actually, if you do want to share the article, that would be nice too, if you want to repost it. But if you go to that big post, the pinned one with 500,000 views and a ton of engagement, if you start reading the responses, you'll see people are pissed at me. How dare a priest talk to a girl who would defend LGBTQ, as if I'm afraid of that. Guys, have you read anything about me? It's all available on my profile under articles and long form and in my bio. Like I'm a street priest, So my God, you think a 26-year-old athlete, I'm not going to stand by her when the world is hammering her? I'm going to do it, with my bishop's permission, by the way. And so I'm so glad that you were here tonight. Normally we would have hymns and prayers, but I don't want to do that. This was for her, even if she never sees it. So I don't want to do that. I might end this and then come back, and I could read my homily and we could say some prayers and hymns, but I just don't want to do that for this. So I'm going to end this now. I'm just going to look to see if there's any comments in the space. There's no chatting. So I'm just going to say good night to you. Amber, wherever you are, I wish God's peace and blessing in your life. I'm very proud of you. And I meant it. If I ever did get to sit down and have coffee or a drink or whatever, or a meal with you, it would be an honor just to sit and to encounter you and to learn your life from you. But I hope that in my little way, as imperfect as I'm sure that was, that I did you some bit of honor. So good night, and thank you very much. Please share the video, share the article, and good night. Thank you.